We are ready to start. Yes, perfect. You can hear me? Yeah, just a minute. We can start. Great. So welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here in this packed room, but also online because we have a live streaming, which is also good news. So it means that we are recording this session. So you don't need to take notes. You can actually enjoy it live. So thank you so much, Sandro, for accepting our invitation. We're super happy to have you. Thank you. My name is Alessandra Cardaci, and I work at Debeni Europe, which is the citizen engagement unit of Friends of Europe. I'm head of programming and operations, and today I'll be your moderator. So before we start, just a couple of pieces of info. We are very much active on social media, Friends of Europe, Debeni Europe, these are our channels. We have 2 hashtags here, Voices for Choices, Renew Social Contract, so we encourage you to also engage the conversation online, but don't worry, we will also have plenty of time to engage with you live for about 20-25 minutes in the second half of this hour together to give you the chance to ask questions to Sandro and for Sandro to react, of course. So today's discussion is the first of a series that we at Friends of Europe are offering you, people from the private, public sector, civil society sector, to really reflect together about the next EU mandate and what we think it should be focusing on. Let me just start to give a context from the Friends of Europe perspective, and then of course we will ask a couple of questions to Sandro and engage with all of you. We at Friends of Europe, we believe that the next EU mandate should focus on rethinking the social contract for Europe. And in fact, that's why at the end of February 2024, so earlier this year, we released this report that maybe some of you are already familiar with, the 10 policy choices for a renewed social contract for Europe. Why? Well, because we think that basically we are facing massive challenges from climate change, digitalization, demographic changes, and sometimes when we think about this crisis, we feel a bit paralyzed. And probably it's because we think of them with the lenses of 1950s, so in an old-fashioned way. And we believe at Friends of Europe that by bringing all of you, people from the private, public sector, civil society, but also citizens, we can rethink we can renew the social contract of Europe by putting forward innovative ideas with the lenses of a new Europe, a forward-looking Europe. And that's also why, on top of these 10 policy choices, which cover indeed 10 different policy areas where we start to develop some innovative ideas, we also released the 2024 Voices Citizens Speak Up report, which complements, if you like, this report with the vision of over 2,000 citizens from across Europe, from 7 European countries. So I really encourage you to have a look at this and come back to us with your feedback, because again, we cannot think about renew social contract for Europe without your support and inputs as well. So first of all, I give these 2 to you, Sandro, because our job is also to make these findings available and known by people that have such an influence like you, so just to say. And now, let me introduce briefly to Sandro Gozi. We are with him today. You are Team Europe candidate of the European Democratic Party, and you will represent the Renew Europe Now platform in the upcoming European debates with the other Spitzenkandidaten from the other European political families. You're a former diplomat, you have extensive experience in EU politics and policy making in the Parliament, in the Commission, so it's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to engage with you. I'll start by a question about democratic engagement, because today we will talk about democracy, economy, digitalization, security, so really big topics for the next EU elections and the next years to come, but we believe that we should start from democracy, because without it, the rest is pointless, if you like. So we clearly have a huge distrust from Europeans about political processes and politicians in general. We see this from the 2024 Voices report, you will see from our citizens. They really feel not heard, not listened by politicians. So what concrete things, initiatives you will Yes, or we can both sit as you wish. Will you introduce to increase citizens' participation and trust in democracy?
Well, first of all, let me thank you, thank Friends of Europe for the invitation, and let me thank you all for your presence. I'm very honored that so many people are interested in sharing ideas and listening also to me. I hope I won't be too boring, but she will help me, Alexander, to keep the debate lively. The issue of trust in democracy, trust in politics, is a huge issue, and it is difficult to tackle in few minutes. But I would say, to answer to your question, that the first is that we are challenged in efficiency from other models today in Europe. We are challenged in efficiency because there are models which are not typically liberal democracies model, let's say, to be diplomatic, that they seem to deliver faster and sometimes better than the democracies. So the issue of results, the issue of concrete solutions is the main challenge of the democratic system. The challenge is twofold, because not only democracy takes time, because democracy means debate, democracy means discussions, democracy means exchange of views and confront views which are not necessarily the same at the beginning. Democracy is a difficult search for compromises. The challenge is twofold, because on one side this is less and less accepted by people who are in need, or by people who think that they deserve a urgent and quick solution. And on the other side, because in our era, it is so immediate through the social network democracy, or let's say the social network space. It is so fast, then it makes seem even 3-month discussion, 4-month discussion, excessively long to find a solution. These are the challenges. So these are the two main challenges. And then there is also the issue of how you are part of the democratic process and how to increase democratic participation. On the first process, it is clear that we need to make democracies more efficient and quicker. And this is true also at the European level. This is why, not only now, I mean, I've always been on the side of those who want to get rid of veto in the European Union decision-making system, because veto means paralysis, veto means wasting time, and sometimes veto means not having the possibility of taking a decision. And we cannot allow this. We cannot allow the Viktor Orban of the situation to waste our time and to blackmail us, asking for more money for Hungary because we want to do the right thing, which is sanction Putin and Russia for the Ukrainian aggression. We simply cannot afford this. And it is clear that in this case, you see that a democracy that has done the right things, but in the eyes of many of the citizens, it took too long or done too little. So it's clear that the issue of reforming democracy and having democracy to be faster is a key issue. At a European level, my proposal are basically two: get rid of the veto, so decide everything by majority in the Council, and decide everything between Parliament and Council. Why? Because, with all due respect for my former colleagues, both diplomat and member of the Council, I was a diplomat, I have been member of the Council, I chair the Council, we cannot leave to ambassadors, diplomats, minister, even less Sherpa. I'm totally against Sherpacracy. It is one of the biggest problems, obscure problem of the Union. We cannot leave to generals only the issue of building up European power. It is clear that we have to do so with a strong democratic supervision and participation. The issue of participation is the issue why you are, not you, I am here, and because you launched this initiative. We have also to be creative in increasing, giving the envy to citizens to spend some minutes of the day or some hours of the weeks in thinking about democracy and thinking about how they can better participate in democracy. And this is another point, which is not new, but it is a point of our era. It's not only I vote and then I wait for the next election in 5 years' time. Because this doesn't work. This is not a way a citizen should be in a democracy. This is not a way a democracy should work, by the way. You have to vote, and then you fight for your vote and for your values. This is what we should achieve. And this is why we are seeing all over Europe, not all over Europe, in some member states at the European level, new experiment of direct citizen participation. Because after all, the referendum which brought to legalize, to take important decisions in Ireland was preceded by a new form of citizens' participation and assemblies. Because what we have done in the country where I live and I'm elected in France on the ecological future, and what we have done also with the end of life debate, the issue of assisted suicide. We are now talking about a new law in France, but this decision has been preceded by 1 year work of a convention where there were 105 citizens talking about fundamental issues, how we want to die. Can we choose, can death be also a choice which belongs to me or not? And if it belongs to me on my own, me with my family, me with my doctor, etc. And so there are new forms of trying to engage citizenship. We have done so at European level with the Conference of the Future of Union. It's not because of us, it's because of some government and a lot of media. They didn't attach the importance and paid enough attention to this exercise. But it was for the first time in our continent. There were 1,000 people going around European capitals and talking about the Europe they want. And there was also a digital platform where more than 400,000 people or organizations has given shared their opinion. The problem that, and I will stop here, when you do this new form of citizen participation, you need people to be aware of this. At European level, neither little bit the institutions, very little the government, and basically nothing from the media we got to make people informed about what we are doing. So also this is a problem. Then on one side, we have to introduce new form of direct participation. On the other side, we have to let people know that this participation, this possibility of participating exists. Yeah. I stop here.
That's great, very clear. And on top of that, as you said at the beginning, speeding up a little bit the democratic decision-making within the institutions with some reforms. The next question is about economic recovery and sustainability. In fact, of course, the reason why a lot of people feel left behind and feel not heard probably is also because the economic situation is not so great. We all know that democracy weakens whenever there is an economic crisis, right, historically. So we live in a vulnerable and precarious European economic system at the moment. So what concrete measure will you take to make sure that we can grow, but at the same time being sustainable, and at the same time making sure that no one feels left behind in the, economic growth process, sustainable process?
Well, I think that probably it's not necessarily very new what I'm going to say, but I believe in what I'm going to say. So, I think that we have done a lot in this phase to take on the responsibilities and indicating to our citizens and to also the economic operators, the enterprises, the business world, the way we want to move ahead in the next 30 years. And I also think that this is what you expect from politics. Then you do not necessarily have to share everything politics decide, but when politics exercise the responsibility that's saying to the citizens and says to the world of business, this is the direction we want to go, I think we've done a very good part of our job. And then we will be decided, as we will be decided in the 9th of June election, whether we have done our decision, were the good decision. But at least we have decided, and we have said very clearly, we want to enter fully, embrace fully the ecological transition. So the issue of Green Deal. We could have done better, should have done less. There are some decisions which are excessive, other decisions not efficient. We have started the process in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 2 years' time. We will have the time also to assess the impact of the implementation of the first decision and decide whether they were the good one. But this is a key societal, but also growth strategy that we have decided. And I think that is going to bear positive fruit to the European Union. The other issue is we have decided to approach protecting our values and with the clear objective of boosting a new European economy, the digital sector. And what we have done with the Digital Service Act, the Digital Market Act, Political Advertising, Data Act, Data Governance Act, that we want to better regulate the digital world, but we also to create the condition to fight against the oligopolies and to boost a European business in the digital sector. And I think that we have taken the right decision. Of course, there again, in 2-3 years' time, will be the first evaluation, and we see whether it was effective. Now, it is clear that our duty is to find the resources. To find the resources, because one thing is the rules, and you need good rules. The other thing is how we boost public and private investment, the necessary public and private investment to make it happen, both in the ecological transition and in the digital transformation. And on that, there are many things that, in my view, we could do. First of all, I mean, and here there are people who are experts much more than me, but I mean, the saving rate of the European are huge. The problem is that most of them buy American auction and look at the New York estate and not to the European one. Why? Because we don't have a union of investment saving. We have to create a much more efficient single market where we promote saving and we promote investment and we give good choices for all the European savers where to put the money to get a little bit more money. And this is something that we must absolutely do because there you can find a good part of the resource. The potentialities are huge. A good part of the resources needed to implement our ecological and digital strategy, which of course means also to fill the gap compared to China or compared to the United States in terms of the intensity of investment and of innovation they have accumulated in the last 10 years. Then there is another point, another issue, that it is we need to provide the Union with new own resources. As we have done, as we have started to do with the, I say carbon tax so we understand each other, the carbon tax at the border of the European Union. It is possible, it is necessary, and my approach is we need new resources because we need the resources, but also because this approach can help to push towards behaviors which are more compatible with our objective. Because after all, we are the first market in the world. So we have to extend the implementation of the border mechanism, adjustment mechanism to other sectors because it is an issue of ecological justice and clever competitiveness. If we ask to our producer to comply with certain rules, we have to make sure that those who want to sell the product to our market respect the same rules, and if they don't respect the same rules, they have to pay for that. So this idea of, providing the Union with new resources, certainly for me, another answer also to fight against social inequalities. And after all, the word solidarity, you can find this word solidarity or some synonym of solidarity in the treaties at least 21 times. Solidarity, territorial cohesion, social cohesion, etc. I think it is time also that we provide the Union, and not only the Member State, with the necessary means to do so. But this is not a silver bullet, but the most important issue, the most difficult issue, the issue for which we are going to fight in the new term is to change two adjectives to the Next Generation EU, to the so-called recovery plan. Because a deal that we made, and I was one of those who pushes, together with Emmanuel Macron, together with Valérie Ayé and my colleagues in Renew Europe, at the European Parliament, the deal we made with Angela Merkel and all the others is we launch a new Marshall Plan, because for I don't know how many years we say Europe needs a new Marshall Plan. We've done it, because it is bigger than the Marshall Plan, what we've done with the recovery plan, 800 billion euro. But the agreement was temporary and exceptional. Now we have to change these two adjectives. We have to make it permanent and to make it the ordinary way of providing the Union with new resources. And this is clear, goes also with the issue of how to repay that common debt. And you have to repay common debt with the new resources. But this is going to be very difficult. But you see that, and will be my last point, there are allies of mine who have been always very reluctant to the issue of common debt, European common debt, Eurobond, like Kaja Kallas, the Estonian Prime Minister. And I'm very happy that Kaja proposed recently, how do we finance a new European defense? How do we find our resistance to Putin? With Eurobond. Well, very good. So you see that when the ideas are good, they go deep.
Interconnected they are. Indeed, you anticipated my question about digital transition, and now I'll ask you a last question of this conversation, and we open up the floor to you, so start preparing your questions, which is indeed about security and defense. So what's your vision for Europe's security and defense, consider the context we live in, as you just mentioned yourself?
Well, I mean, there is a sort of oxymoron that we have to face, and also to change what we have been doing so far. The oxymoron is to talk about European power. Until 10, 15 years ago was an oxymoron. Because Europe was conceived as an antidote to the use of power. Europe was conceived as an antidote to the use of national, or even worse, nationalistic powers between member states and between European peoples. This is why Europe was born, and it was developed after a failure also at the time to try to accelerate the failures is the European Community of Defense in 1953. Now, this oxymoron has become an absolute necessity, because we have so far led as European not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. But today we need also a true European power. And we need so because we have entered in an era which is brutal, in an era where power politics and the relation of power are at the center of the international scene, where the old world global order doesn't exist anymore, or let's say is having some serious troubles, to say the least. And you know that in international politics, either you are powerful enough to be at the table, or you are in the menu. And to me, I don't want to be in the menu of extra-European powers. I want to be able to choose my presence, my future. And this is why we need to to look at the harsh reality. And the harsh reality, as European, we can be listened to, we can be influential, we can provide our security, we can provide the stability to our continent, only if we do what we haven't done so far to really get serious about a European defense, which is not an alternative to the NATO, is not an alternative to the Transatlantic Alliance, is also to become more efficient, more influential within the Transatlantic Partnership, because after all, when we talk about European defense, we talk about a European pillar of the Transatlantic Partnership. But I think that this is absolutely necessary. Don't believe to those that tell you, they try to sell you a very nice story. I mean, there is the leader of the Socialist Party, Democratic Party in Italy, who is Schlein, or Glucksmann in France. They're trying to sell a very nice story. We do a European defense, so we spend less for defense, each of us. Best of the two worlds. Less expenditure and more security. No. European defense means to spend more efficiently what we spend already, and also to decide from here to 1230 to spend more together to further increase our efficiency. But it's clear that, there are obligations, the 2% of the military expenditure that we have taken within NATO. There are some countries who are almost there. France is 1.9. There are some other countries like Poland, the Baltic States, that went beyond because they saw the Russian aggression, the Russian threat earlier than us. But it is clear that this is something on which we have to bet, which is also linked to growth, because that it is impossible to do so without developing a truly European industry defense. So with a European preference, with a European tender to favor the development of European industry project. And I think that this should also be seen not only as a geopolitical existential issue, but also one of the strategies on how to boost a part of our industry, at least in the next 10, 15 years ahead of us.
Very clear. Thank you so much, Sandro, for this clear vision on these 4 different topics that we have covered: democracy, economy, digitalization, security. Now I'd like to open up the floor to your questions. So would there be any question from you? Yes, so please wait the mic, and if you can just introduce yourself and what sector you represent so we know the perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've listened with great excitement, and I would say I broadly agree to the judgment of the challenges of the future. My name is Lars Ebert. I'm Secretary General of Culture Action Europe, the main network of other cultural networks in Europe, an advocacy organization. We are running a campaign that is called a Cultural Deal for Europe, where we think that, where we advocate for a deal in analogy with the Green Deal. And at least 3 of the areas you've been touching upon, the democratic and civic engagement one, digital transition, but also the security one, are areas where we would believe that culture plays a crucial role, and yet we seem to be rather on the menu than at the table, to use your metaphor. In other words, financially, we are getting the breadcrumbs in terms of the commissioner. We get the weakest of them all. What is your vision on that? I mean, it may be obvious what answer I would like to hear.
Thank you. We can collect another question, maybe Andreas, yes.
Thank you very much. Andreas Aktudianakis from Google. I would like to ask you a question which actually, is also in the context of some current discussions on policy now in Brussels, looking at Enrico Letta's report. Enrico Letta, in his report, he outlined some of the priorities that the single market should have prioritized for the last 25 years that is yet to deliver. And then, looking at the current context where defense and security is a huge priority, he says that on top of the things that we should have delivered until now, we also need to increase our defense and security. So my question to you really is, how do you think in the next mandate we will be able to prioritize the areas where we should have delivered, looking at integration of the telecoms, a capital markets union, as you mentioned, which is an extremely important way to, of course, facilitate investment from the private, from people's savings, actually. And then lastly, on the digital transition, like how can we do all of the above plus what's ahead of us? If we weren't able to deliver until now, what should make us hopeful? Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. I would say maybe we stop here. We reply to these 2 very important questions, and then we take another round of questions.
I want to thank you for your question, because it sounds like if we had prepared it, but believe me, we haven't prepared it. We haven't. But it sounds like we're prepared, because in our program for the European elections, as Democrats of Renew, we say we got the answer for you. Because we say, first of all, that Europe is a civilization even before the nation state of the European Union existed, which is true. Look at the Renaissance. Look at if you had asked to Leonardo da Vinci or Erasmus from Rotterdam, or even Francis Bacon, I know for our British friends that are a little bit the master of English language, if they were more French or more Italian, more Dutch or more Spain, they would have looked at you like you were coming from planet Mars. They were obviously European. Also because, yes, France existed, the Netherlands didn't exist like it exists now, Italy didn't exist, but there was an Italian culture, there was an Italian language, there was an Italian civilization before the Italian state. So this is what we have to recall today. Because, you know, there is a Jewish, how do you say proverb? Proverb. There is a Jewish proverb that says, saying, a Jewish saying that says that each baby is born with roots and wings. But the difference is that sometimes the roots are weak, sometimes the wings are not enough to fly very high and very far. We Europeans, we got strong roots and strong wings because we are the product of a civilization. And this is why when we talk about security, and this is in our program, in our manifesto of the European Democratic Party, you can do the check, you can check live, so you see that I don't lie. We say exactly this. We want to provide a new security, but for us the new security can be only military security, military commitment, but must be also culture. So for each euro, the extra, additional, fresh euro that we spend for the military sector, we should spend an extra euro for culture, for knowledge, and for education. This is one of the key pillars of our proposal, and this is what I stand for. I got a legitimacy because of one is the Italian government. It was our government that gave the first answer of this kind to what it happened in Bataclan. Because in Bataclan, those Islamic Nazis that killed more than 130 of our European youths, they hated exactly what we are. They hate our freedom, they hate our political liberalism, they hate our values, they hate the fact that for us a woman is equal to a man, they hate the fact that we say that the Constitution is above the Torah, the Quran, or even the Bible. They hate of this. So the best answer is to uproot this hate that is born more and more in our suburban areas, is born more and more within Europe. Those Islamic Nazis were, most of them, European, who killed other European because they hated what Europe is. And this is why, to provide a real security, we cannot only work on intelligence, police, secret service, and military. And we have a lot of things to do on this sector, of course. But we have also to work on culture, civilization. And the idea of the pass culture, bonus cultura, the fact that we give to young people of 18 years old a budget that they can use for their culture, be it theater, be a book, be it education, etc., was born as an answer, and Matteo Renzi announced this at La Sorbonne when she was there with the, at the time, Education Minister Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, that was the Holland presidency. We say our answer to this is to do more in terms of military terms, but to do more also in cultural terms. You see, when you got strong roots and big wings, you are imitated. Emmanuel Macron, he said it at La Sorbonne, the passe culture in France. Emmanuel said clearly, because it is like that, he said, I copied a good idea. And the good idea was the bonus culture. And now this good idea is being copied in Germany. And it is one of our proposals to have a pass culture at the European level, because I strongly believe, I'm strongly convinced that this is our way to provide security. This is the European way of providing security. We have a commission where we're talking about the European way of life. I haven't seen anything about the European way of life. I think that from this perspective, Margherita Schinas has sold smokes all over the place, has put smoke. If he had done something like we say, that is not a European way of life, it's a European way of being. European way of being. Yes, I mean, Enrico Letta did a good report. not particularly innovative. What is innovative is that there is a government who has asked him to do so. Finally, the Council is awaking, and the Belgian presidency has asked Enrico to put around things that we know, and I think how we can do. I mean, we are we are adults, so we can do more than one thing at the same time in 5 years. We are paid for this, and I think that this is playing on the sense of urgency because of threats, because of weak competitiveness, because of the need to fill the gap compared to other areas of the world, such as especially, not only, China or the US, but also India on certain issues, etc. I think that if we want to build up a truly strategic autonomy, if we want to become less dependent from the rest of the world, we have certainly to bet on energy, on defense, and on building up this union of saving and investment, because these are necessary, because they are very linked to the other priorities we have been talking so far, even today. Because it is clear that energy is also a security issue. It is clear that defense is also linked to the investment capacity. So I think that focusing on this, it is possible and it is absolutely necessary. After all, I say, we have done the impossible in 2019, 2020. Because if you had asked me, if, even in 2018, when I was still in government, do you think that in 1.5 years time, Europe is capable of going on the market, creating European debt, building up an economic plan of almost 800 billion euro? And do you think that the European will use the budget of the European Union to buy arms and weapons for the Ukrainians? I would say it would be great, but I don't think we are going to be able to do so, and we've done it. So, I mean, when we are under pressure and when the crisis gets serious, we have proved in the past, and also in the recent past, that we are able to react in the right way. So I think that as these are part of the answer we still have to complete, to provide, I hope and I think that we can focus on these 3 points.
Thank you. Another question, please? Yes? Sorry for the mic.
Thank you very much. It was really good to hear you talk about...
Sorry, can you please introduce yourself, just so we know who is who? Yeah, no
sorry, I'm Emily. I'm the EU Director of the One Campaign, which is an international development NGO fighting extreme poverty and preventable disease, particularly in Africa. And I was going to say, it was really helpful to hear you talk about, the need to preserve the EU's influence and credibility globally. But arguably, this is not something that Europe can determine on its own. It really is kind of in the eyes of Europe's partners on the global stage. But when I listen to the debate around the elections, I really worry that there is a risk that we're kind of falling into an old kind of fortress Europe trap, which is, a lot of inward. Focus, understandably, because of the challenges that you set out today. But I think that could benefit from like a greater recognition that Europe is dependent on partner countries for things like raw materials, for energy, for allies in multilateral fora, etc. So my question to you would be, how important do you see those relationships going forward in Europe's future, the relationships with, for example, African countries, and what would you do to strengthen those relationships?
Thank you very much. We'll take another question, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Marco De Benedictis, and I'm from Generation Climate Europe, which is the largest coalition of youth-led organizations on climate, environment, and sustainability topics. And so my question would be, you talked before about sustainability, the EU Next Generation Fund, etc. And so the really point are future generations and youth in general, which I believe is the big missing part from the policy cycle in general. Youth are kept quite apart from the policy arena, policy debate and implementations. And of course, future generation cannot even vote, so they're even farther. So my question would be, do you support including more youth and future generation in the policy cycle with impact assessment specific on these topics, and also structuring a clear and specific governance for it? For example, would you promote having a commissioner for future generations acting as first vice president?
Thank you very much. Just on this last question, if I may add quickly, from our report, 2024 Voices, what came up also is this idea that youth would like to be more involved, and even having potentially youth quotas, maybe, like we have gender quotas, why not youth quotas to ensure that they are systematically represented? So, but yes, let's answer this second round of questions.
No, we don't want a fortress Europe, but we want a Europe that takes back control. And I use this phrase. I use the Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage phrase, because I think that the phrase was very effective and reflect a very good part of truth. Because on some transnational global issues, we have lost control. This goes back to the first answer that I gave about the crisis of democracies. Democracies are in crisis also because they are not credible anymore, and they are not credible anymore because they look, and they are, partially powerless when they are confronted with issues that goes well beyond the capacity of a state, of a nation state. So we need to take back control. This is why I praise the Asylum and Migration Pact. Differently from all my competitors in France, that nobody of them voted for the Asylum and Migration Pact. Different from the left in Italy, they did not vote the Asylum and Migration Pact. I can tell you that if when I was a minister, I had during the Syrian crisis, 2014, 2015, the Asylum Migration Pact, Italy would have been much better off. And why I say this? Because sometimes taking back control is the best way of ensuring the efficiency of European action and the protection of your national interest. And by the way, this is not by chance that the lady who has won the national election saying, I'm going to do a naval blockade in the Mediterranean, so I will solve the problem with a naval blockade in the Mediterranean. But she has voted, Giorgia Meloni, for the Asylum and Migration Pact. Because the nationalists are like that. They live on problem, they live on problem, not on solutions. But when you are in government, you are confronted with the harsh reality and you have to provide solutions. And this is why she has decided to come on our side. And it is true also on other issues. We have worked a lot for a comprehensive, I think, comprehensive legislative package on digital issues, because on digital issues we must take back control. Because we couldn't live a real world, because the digital world is not virtual at all, it's very real, because it's part of our daily life. We couldn't let the platform do what they want. When it comes of moderation against systemic risk to our security, against systemic risk to our human rights. We want to know how the algorithm works, so open the black box. How many European states or other states have tried to impose this rule to the big tech? How many? Many. Who managed to do so? Only us as Europeans, because when you are the first market, you got the clout also to resist to the lobby, to move ahead with your strategy. So it's not because we don't like the big tech. There is the Google representative. It's not because we don't like you, but we want you to work according to our values and our interests in the full respect of the free market, and because we want a free market and not a market governed by few. So the issue is not, and this is true also for the trade issues. We are not protectionist, but we are less naive. Because I don't understand why we were so, they are really, not wings, but you are out in another planet, to think that you can open the market, your market, without asking to your partner to do the same, and then to gain something from this. So we want to use the reciprocity, but not because we want back to protectionist policies, but because if I open my tender to the Japanese or the Chinese, I want them to open the tender with us, with Japan we've managed. Why shouldn't we do so? Is this being a fortress, or is this being less naive? And with Africa, I think that we have written a lot. Now we have to implement it, because the new Europe-Africa partnership that was launched in February 2022 under the French presidency, I think that uses the right word, indicate the right strategy. It is clear that partnership must be in a partnership on an equal footing. It's time that the time of France-Afrique is over. It is clear that if each of us, as Italian, French, Portuguese, Spaniard, we go to Africa, we have seen like the former colonialists, and if we go there as European with a new approach, we can build up a new partnership. So I mean, I think that there are many good things, but we have to implement them. We have to implement them. We have to implement them with the necessary resources, and being ready to be consistent with our words. So I don't think that we have to reinvent the wheel in the next term. I think that we have to put flesh on the bones of that partnership. Yeah, you wrote me about the Commission for Future Generation. I would like a commission for future generation, but if you feel, say, with the commissioner for future generation, I can support it. But what the most important thing is the youth assessment, youth impact assessment of every policy. And there again, I thank you very much, like I thank your colleague, because the youth impact assessment of each policy is one of the proposals of Renew Europe. We propose to introduce this. Because it is a generational issue, because it is a way of fighting against inequalities, because it's a way of fighting against the generational gaps. So we propose, as we have an impact assessment on small and medium businesses already, we want to have for any new policy, European policies, a youth impact assessment is part of our proposal. Then on the single market, I think that we have to look also how to make the single market more sustainable. Not only which new strategy we have to invent, and we invented a big new strategy with the Green Deal, but also how we transform what we have, and how we want what we have to function in a way more compatible, more compliant with our new objective. What we have done on the single market, on the right to repair, on the ban of planned obsolescence, on empowering consumers. These are all things that are good for the European economy, good for the circular economy, but certainly are particularly good for the new generation. So I think that we should also have this approach, how we transform what we have and what is already functioning well in order to better reach our common objectives.
Thank you. Very clear answers again. Some other questions? Please. Can we? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Nicole Bertolini from the American Chamber of Commerce to the EU. My question is connected to the visit of Xi Jinping right now in France and somewhere else in Europe. So also to reconnect to the previous question about cooperating with like-minded countries, especially on common challenges. And I think we can agree at this point in time that, as you mentioned, this lack of reciprocity, uncompetitive behaviors from some countries, especially China, are common challenges that we share with other countries, like-minded countries like the United States. So basically, my question is, how do we envisage exactly cooperation with like-minded countries, like especially the US, but also Japan, South Korea, with respect to these challenges, but also specifically, what is the unique EU-China strategy and policy that you envisage for the next mandate?
Thank you. Shall we take another question, maybe? Yeah, the lady here in the front, please.
Thank you. Yes, hi. Sandro MEP from the Swiss mission to the EU. Swiss, yes. I would be interested in having your vision and maybe also recommendations for the future, because it's a bit going into the same question, but more looking at institutional cooperation with third countries, like-minded third countries, like Switzerland, but EEA countries or the UK. And how would you, envision also flexible cooperation agreements, and also given the fact that, like in Switzerland with the direct democracy, we have some limits towards joining the EU, and would like to preserve that. So what is the space that the EU is willing also to give to small countries like Switzerland, but who are willing to cooperate and like-minded.
Thank you.
Please. Well, the visit of Xi and Macron, for us, China is, I would say, an unavoidable partner. But it is so also for the American, I would say. It is clear that we are concerned with the fact that China is respecting less and less the World Trade Organization rules. And we are less concerned with aggressive trade policies, subsidies. So, I mean, we think that it's very positive that the European Commission is starting to use its power, its prerogative to assess whether the presence of Chinese companies in the European market is in compliance with those rules, starting from subsidies and state aid, that we apply to our companies, and we must apply also to the other companies who want to benefit from the single market. So this is what we are pushing. Madam Macron is pushing for this. China is a necessary and active partner on the fight against climate change. And it is clear that, I mean, without China, without India, without Brazil, we will never win the fight against climate change, because there is one single planet. So, I mean, these are only two of the reasons why the dialogue of Emmanuel Macron and our strategy also as Renew is active towards China without being naive, and trying also to rectify imbalances that are not acceptable anymore from the European point of view. And that should ask your question to our German friends. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, but Germany proved to have it wrong. Because they bet on energy on Russia. They bet for growth and trade on China. Hello, we have to reshift it. Now, the work is going on, but it is clear that we have to readjust our strategy, because we have to become more autonomous on energy, because we can't depend on trade on China, even if we want to trade with China. And these are two, and also we need to become more autonomous, not because we don't want the alliance with the US anymore, but because it wasn't Donald Trump the first one to tell the Europeans to become adult in terms of security. It was Barack Obama. Only, I mean, much more elegant man than Donald Trump. He said it in a more elegant way, but the content is the same. So, I mean, then let me say, because it's my friend John Podesta who was the author of that, so I mean, I'm sure he won't be offended if I can tell you that also the Inflation Reduction Act is not in fully compliance with the World Trade Organization. So when we talk about how to keep our trade effective and open, I think that we should also look on Washington side. Switzerland, mais qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire avec la Suisse? Qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire avec vous? I agree. I'm very happy that you managed to convince yourself that the institutional framework is very important in our bilateral relations, that we cannot have 7 or 8 bilateral agreements without having an institutional framework. And also happy that you understand that when we talk about European law, the European Court of Justice must have a role, because c'est notre cour. But I think that now we can negotiate in a better way. I think that I hope that the new dialogue that has resumed recently between the EU and la Confédération Helvétique will bring a good result. I think that the place of Switzerland is in Europe. I think Switzerland belongs to Europe. I regret that the Swiss decided not to join the European Union. I think that you would be perfectly well off in the Union, but it is your choice, not mine. I do believe that the European political community, the new strategic concept that Emmanuel Macron launched at the end of the conference of the Future of Union, is the right one, because it's a strategic forum where we can engage on issues of common interest, be it security, be it energy, be it infrastructure, with all those European partners who are willing to join. So that is certainly the forum where the Swiss, like the Brits, can play a very active role, and I think that in this new geopolitical context, with the new challenges, because we have to reorganize the security and stability order in the Union. We are in a period similar to the one who brought to the Helsinki Act in 1976, because the aggression of Putin has dismantled that kind of security, stability, cooperation order in Europe. We have to think out of the box, and I think that Swiss can play a very active role in the European political community, and I hope you will do so.
Thank you very much. I see time is flying, so it's time to wrap up. Before I do so, Sandro, is there any final remark, word that you want to share after reflecting on so many different topics with the audience today?
Well, no, I think I already spoken too much, and I'm losing my voice, and I need to keep it, because in Paris tonight we present our list, and so I hope I won't have to speak too much, but I have something to say. No, thank you for your commitment, for your presence. I'm convinced, but I mean, I am convinced that we have played as Renew a transformative role in the Union in these 5 years. I am convinced that even if we have been sometimes irritating an irritant for some, we have always pointed out that the roi est nu, and that we have to do something about it. And also, the recent declaration on Ukraine and Russia are declarations that tells loudly what people know and don't want to listen to. If Putin wins in Ukraine, he will not stop in Ukraine. I know that it is not nice to hear, but this is the harsh reality. So we have to put the problem on the table and to see in the list of the problem on the table what problem we can solve together as Europeans. This is our message, this is our commitment, and this is what I'm going to do in the next term. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you so much, Sandro. Thank you, everyone. Before we say goodbye, I don't think I need to wrap up, because you've been so clear on all the different topics we've covered. But just to say, we will continue this series of events with Nicola Schmidt as well on the 15th of May, so just so that you know. And we will also have on the 28th of May an event on Ukraine indeed, so as you just said, Ukraine Security Forum, where we will present a report on the cost of and consequences of Ukraine's non-victory, not just for Ukraine, but also for Europe. So just to connect with what you just said. And also as Debating Europe, so the Citizen Engagement Unit, especially for those who are following us online, maybe from different locations in Europe, we are organizing a series of local events. These are more citizens-led, civil society-led. We have one tonight in Madrid. We will have another one on the 14th of May in Paris, another one on the 21st of May in Lublin, and 31st of May in Stockholm. So just if you happen to be there, please come and join us and shape the Renew Social Contract policy choices. So thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. And thank you again, Sandro, and good luck.